Welcome to Opera Notes. Today we are honored with the presence of Kathinka Pasveer, who was Karlheinz Stockhausen's closest collaborator for perhaps more than 2 decades. And she's here today to talk about Stockhausen's opera cycle Licht, or Light in English. So, Ms. Pasveer, thank you for being with us today. And the first obliged question is, did Stockhausen like opera? And
No.
So my second question is out of the question then, because I was going to ask which composers, which pieces he liked.
No, so he called Licht an opera because he knew that opera houses were the only institutions who would be able to produce such productions because they have the infrastructure. But he himself did not like opera. So in fact, Licht is not an opera, it's musical theater, he called it, musical theater, but it needs opera houses to produce it. So that's why it's called seven operas, or yeah.
Okay. What was Stockhausen's objection towards opera? Why did he not like opera?
Well, he did not like the emotionality, the themes, because everything is always about jealousy, about murder, about extreme emotions. And for him, life on this earth is not so interesting, was not interesting. So in Licht, everything draws us to the infinite, the cosmos, to a better and more beautiful place. So in Licht, there's no drama and not many human emotions. So
Okay,
it's a different kind of opera.
yes, that was one of my questions, because the whole work is void of such mundane things, right?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
nothing of the sort. And the closest to drama I think we come to on in Licht is this kind of feud between Michael and Lucifer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
go on, go
In
on.
Thursday from Light, in the first act, that's the most human because it depicts Michael, who has incarnated on this earth, and he relives the drama of being born in a family which is not very happy, and goes through all the drama. But in fact, that is the only worldly scene, is Michael's youth of Thursday from Light.
Yeah.
The other themes are not, of course, have to do with this earth. Like what you say, Michael and Lucifer, they are always creating conflicts. So that's one theme of Licht, is in Tuesday from Light, is war or conflict. So all the days of Light have themes which are kind of taboos of human life. So it's about death, it's about birth, it's about war, it's about temptation, it's about spiritual evolvement in Sunday from Light, it's about working together in Wednesday from Light. So it's themes which connects all of us humans, but it always gives us a perspective, not only from this earth, but always from above.
From above, okay. I was at the 1995 premiere in Stuttgart of Weltparlament.
Nice.
I was 19 years old at the time.
Nice.
And at the time, I couldn't make much of it, right? But it was not until recently that I heard it again. And I was quite astonished, because I thought this is fabulous vocal writing. I mean, and we always think of the great composers for the voice, and then we can list the names, right? Rossini, Donizetti, etc. And we never think about Stockhausen. And Stockhausen worked with the voice since the very beginning of his career. And we must think of pieces like Momente, for example, which
Yeah.
the voice
Yeah.
leads the whole piece, right?
Yeah.
So why was Stockhausen so in love with the human voice? What did it mean for him?
Yeah. Already as a student, he wrote several choir pieces because he sang in the student choir of the conservatory himself. So he wrote pieces for that choir also. And yes, he loved the human voice because it can make so many colors and is so flexible. So I think also what you say is right. He's one of the greatest vocal composers because he has written so many fantastic vocal pieces like Angel Processions, Hochzeiten for choir, Festival in Thursday from Light. In every opera almost there's a big choir piece.
Yes.
So he loved to write for choir because the voice is amazing. There's large registers, you have a great flexibility. You have the text also, but you can use the vowels, the overtones, like in Stimmung. So it's very flexible.
Now,
Yeah.
concerning the instrumentation of the work, why does he distance himself from, for example, the large symphony orchestra or a large ensemble symphony orchestra like, meaning 100 players or more? Why does he decide to work with smaller formations?
Well, he worked in the first opera, Thursday from Light. There's a big orchestra in the third act. But he wanted to write then also for other operas, big orchestra. In Saturday from Light, it's a huge wind harmony orchestra of 80 wind players. But he always had problems with finding enough rehearsals with large orchestras because it costs a lot of money to have 80 people and to fit the rehearsals for Stockhausen's works into the rehearsals of a normal symphony orchestra. They usually have 3 rehearsals and then have a concert. But for Stockhausen's works, you need 20, 30 rehearsals. So that's then, as of Monday from Light, he worked with what he called a modern orchestra, which is 3 synthesizers, which can make as much noise as a large orchestra. And he could then work with a smaller ensemble much longer times, for weeks, with 3 synthesizers. And it's just more flexible than a professional symphony orchestra.
Symphony orchestra.
And its orchestra also needs a lot of space on stage or in the, how do you call
The
it?
orchestra pit?
Yeah. So you're not so flexible because Stockhausen, only in the first opera, it's a normal scene with orchestra pit. But in the other operas, the music is all around it, and then you have the problem, where do you put the orchestra? So instead of orchestra, he wrote a lot of electronic music because there you can move the sounds around the public. You cannot have violin players running around the public. So it's more convenient to work with electronic music or with synthesizers or with flexible soloists. So there are more possibilities.
Now, there is a piece which within the cycle that has become one polemic, but also very famous, which is the helicopter string quartet, right? Which I understand was first a commission by the Salzburger Festspiele and Gérard Mortier. But then in the end, the piece was not premiered there, and I think in the beginning Stockhausen didn't even want to write a string quartet. So how did he decide, first of all, to write the string quartet and then to include it in Licht?
Well, he got a commission from Salzburg, as you say, to write a traditional string quartet, and then Stockhausen said, "Well, I don't compose traditional forms." He didn't compose sonatas or symphonies or string quartets. He said, I will never do that. And then he had a dream. He dreamt that there were 4 helicopters, and in every helicopter was a player of a string quartet, and they were perfectly in sync. Then he woke up, but he thought, well, this is crazy. He made some sketches, but he did not talk about it, even not to us. And a few days later, we were in the studio in Cologne, electronic music studio, and it has large windows looking over the Rhine. And at a certain point, one helicopter flew by. I said, look at Stockhausen, look, a helicopter. And then the second one came, and the third one came, and the fourth one came. And then Stockhausen said, well, now I have to show you my sketch. I said, this is a sign to see these 4 helicopters. And then he wrote to the Aditi Quartet, well, I'm going to write you a string quartet. And he had no clue what it was going to be about. And then when in Salzburg they received the score telling them that the players would have to be in helicopters, synchronized by click tracks and with broadcast, video broadcast, audio broadcast, then they said, wow, it's crazy, we will never do that. So then the piece lay for a few years, was not played. And then Jan van Vlijmen, the director of the Holland Festival, who is himself a composer, he said, well, sounds fantastic. So he realized it in 1995 in Holland, in Amsterdam. And the strange thing is, because it's technically so demanding and so difficult and so expensive, but it is the piece of Licht which is performed most.
Ah, okay.
I have no clue why, because I think the people find it exciting to produce it. So that's amazing, because Stockhausen thought, well, it will be performed once and then that's it. It's performed very often, yeah.
Okay. Yes, because many times people think that Stockhausen was not aware of the practicalities, right? Of some of these people, but for what you're telling us, it was totally the opposite, right?
Yes, because he, in detail, he imagined what technically would be necessary to make it possible. So everything is written in the preface of the score. And so you just give it to a technician and they say, okay, and they work then on it. But he was a very practical man with great technical insight also. Okay. And very daring, so never afraid of doing something what interested himself. He found it incredible that people would be broadcast into a hall playing perfectly synchronous, although they are in different spaces. Then 10 years later, more experiments were done by other composers, having musicians in different countries and so. But Stockhausen was really the first one to have flying objects live mixed into a hall, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Now, hearing some of the parts of Licht, I noticed that there is always like either a drone note throughout the whole stretch of a scene, and I'm talking scene in Licht, scenes last an hour, right? Or a chord which also stretches all the time, and all of the other musical events dance around this drone. What was the meaning of that sustained or pedal note or pedal chord?
So Stockhausen for Licht, he composed a super formula, which is 3 melodies: Michael melody, Eve melody, Lucifer melody, and the 3 together, he called it a super formula. It lasts 1 minute. And then for Licht, he expanded this formula sometimes over 2 hours, like in Friday from Light, so that one note which in the super formula is perhaps a half a second becomes 30 seconds. And so he always in his music, he expanded the super formula and then had different kinds of expansions on top of it to make the scenes. So you in Licht, we never hear this super formula which lasts 1 minute. It's always different expansions of this super formula and always in different layers. So one layer is a very slow section of the super formula, which is Monday or Tuesday or Friday from Light, which is sometimes, it's just 1/7 part of the super formula. So it's perhaps 3-4 notes, which are stretched then over the total duration of the opera. And then the other scenes are on top of it using multiple super formula, how do you call it, expansions. So everything is part of this super formula, but it's just like looking through a microscope. Everything becomes very large, although it's so small, but in your eyes it becomes suddenly like something huge. And that's the same. It's micro, how do you call it? Microspection. I don't know.
Like a universe contained within another universe.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what was first? The idea of the text, although the text is rather sparse. I mean, many long stretches of the piece have absolutely no text whatsoever. So what was first? The text, or we could call it the script in this case, or the music?
Yeah. So in Stockhausen's opera, it's always first the music, and then he wrote. That's why he wrote mostly the text himself. Then made text which fit to this music. So he could never use a libretto, because then he would have to make the music like the text. There are only two parts of Licht which use text. One of Saturday Farewell. It's the Lodi della Virtù, the François d'Assise. And we have in Unsichtbare Chöre, there are 3 texts from the Hebrew Old Testament, which are used in Unsichtbare Chöre. But all the other texts Stockhausen wrote himself, because first he made the music, and then, of course, he had an idea what the scene was about, and then he made the text. But often it's only phonetics, or it's fantasy words, or words with real meaning, but it always fits to the rhythm of the music he composed.
So, in a nutshell, could you tell us exactly what the plot of the whole cycle is?
Well, so Licht is 7 operas for the 7 weekdays. But he started in composing Thursday from Light, which he calls Michael's Day. It's the main protagonist is the Archangel Michael, and the theme of Thursday from Light is learning. So Michael comes to this earth and learns what life is all about. He becomes a musician, and he falls in love, and then ascends to a worldly, an heavenly place. So it's all about learning. The second day he composed was Monday from Light. So he did not go into the order of the week. So Monday from Light is Eve Day. It's the day of Eve, and it's the day of the woman. It's the day of children, of giving birth. That's the main theme of Monday from Light. The third opera he composed is Lucifer's Day, which is Saturday from Light. It's about it's the day of death, the day of resurrection. So, but it's Lucifer with all his intellectual, themes. Then the next day he composed was Tuesday from Light, which is a day of 2 protagonists, Lucifer and Michael. And that's Tuesday is the day of war. So there's conflict in different kinds between Lucifer and Michael. Then the next day he composed was Friday from Light, which is again 2 protagonists, Lucifer and Eve, the day of temptation. So Lucifer tempts Eve to make not only children with Michael, but with Lucifer. And to create, Lucifer says, to evolve mankind, but it's everything goes wrong. So that's the day of temptation, Friday from Light. And then after that, he started to compose Wednesday from Light, where all 3 protagonists are equally important, Lucifer, Michael, and Eve. It's a day of collaboration, of harmony. It's where you heard World Parliament, the day where the Parliament discusses everything about love. It's the day of orchestra finalists, where all the orchestra people all play solely. and the helicopter string quartet where the four players play together. Michaelion, where there's a heavenly place where different people from different constellations come and talk about all the problems which are then solved by an operator. So it's a very harmonious day. And then he composed Sunday from Light as last day, which is mainly Eve and Michael. So it's the mystical union. It's about the spiritual evolution of mankind, going away from this earth and into a better, more perfect world. But the interesting thing is that Stockhausen died, and he finished already Wednesday from Light and Sunday from Light. He never heard the world premiere of the total operas. And the first one to be premiered was Sunday from Light, not Wednesday from Light, Sunday from Light. And then as last opera, we premiered in Birmingham Wednesday from Light. And in fact, that was a wonderful ending of the total cycle, because this is harmony and the three together. So if this was a sign from the cosmos of Stockhausen, from the afterlife, to make Wednesday from Light as last opera, I don't know, but it was very interesting to end with Wednesday. So, but Stockhausen himself said you can perform Licht in any order. So you can either do this from Monday to Monday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc., or in the order where he composed it, or start at any day, and it's like a spiral always going upwards. So it doesn't have an end. It always starts again.
So he is basically telling us that it's like an evolutionary cycle.
Yes.
Regardless where you start. So in other words, it would be like his modular pieces from the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, in a humongous large scale.
Yes. Or like piano piece 11, you can start anywhere, and then connect the operas. Yeah.
I like something very much he said about the modular pieces, because obviously he must have found quite a bit of resistance from critics and the public alike when he started doing this. But I remember he wrote, I don't know if it was part of his text, that well, if a tree gives leaves, not every leaf is the same, right? So it has the same constituents in essence, right?
Yes.
But there is a difference between one and the other. The constituents are there. Right?
Yeah. And if you hear the operas in a different order, you get different ideas and different connections and different. So it's always different.
Okay.
What you feel, what the storyline is, it's always different. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we speaking about the structure of the music. So the formulas then in this case we cannot think of as leitmotifs, so to speak.
No.
It's basically the generating grains for the whole thing. Like you said, a micro universe which can be expanded, right?
Yeah.
Like the Big Bang, basically. You come from a tiny little thing and it blows up into something.
Blows up. Yeah, but of course, because the formulas have names and the formulas are connected to the protagonist. So sometimes you can clearly hear, this is the Michael formula, it's E formula, Lucifer. But it doesn't mean that Lucifer cannot sing the Michael formula. Of course, everything is mixed, but you get a different meaning. If Eve is very soft, and Michael is like a trumpeter, a fighter, and Lucifer is very intricate, very always when you hear numbers, 1 to 5, 1 to 7, 1 to 11 or 13, it's always, okay, that's Lucifer. So you recognize the characters, but it's not like in Wagner or a leitmotif where it's always this, this person. No.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the staging of the pieces, uh, which or how would be or how would be the ideal staging of Licht? Because we know many times composers during their lifetimes, unfortunately, suffer the misfortune of being performed under circumstances and conditions which should have never existed to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, what was Stockhausen's ideal vision of the staging of Licht?
Yeah, for Stockhausen, most important are the sizes of the halls, because in traditional halls it's very difficult to perform Licht because you need a flat floor. Balconies are not good for loudspeaker music. Stage, okay, is only for stereo music, but not for surround sound. And in Licht, people move around the public. So he himself thought for Licht it would be fantastic if we would have 7 different halls, different for each opera, its own hall with the perfect technical setup, because every setup for every opera is different. The seating for the operas is different. So if you would have a fixed hall with perfect technical setup, and also with the color of the day, with the elements of the day, so water in Monday or fire in Tuesday, or so instead of always have a traditional opera house and you put a few props in there, which always looks fake, but to really have an environment that if people come into that hall, they feel like this is Monday because everything is green. There are plants. So the whole atmosphere, the smells, the elements, the colors would all be a part of the experience. So it's not only about the music and the listening, but it's all the senses. He works on in Licht. So there's one scene in Sunday from like Düfte Zeichen, where the singers also how do you call it?
Like in scent.
Yeah, incense, different incense. They burn it, and then, but it's very difficult for the public then to smell it. So, but that was his dream. So to include everything beautiful into a opera performance. So of course that is not likely to happen, but that was his dream. So to have 7 opera houses, and then of course not. It's practically impossible to perform each opera in a different evening. So on one Monday, Tuesday, because it's too complex. But you could do several performances of one opera, then a week nothing to prepare the next, and then the next opera. So that you in 2 months perhaps you could have all the seven operas. But if you already have 7 open opera houses with the perfect installation, then of course it's much easier to perform. Because now when we go into an opera house, we have to bring in all the loudspeakers, the mixing console, get out the chairs, find solutions for the loudspeakers. If there are balconies, it's almost impossible to place public there. So, and usually the halls also ascend, so get higher. Everything is fixed onto the spot where normally a conductor is standing. We don't have conductors in Licht. So it's the perfect concert hall should be flexible, very flexible, and flat. High ceiling with a lot of points for hanging lights and loudspeakers.
Okay. So my last question would be, considering all of the technical aspects of uh, staging one of the Licht operas, I consider it's each one must be from about 4 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, more or less. and living in a money concerned world all the time. Expense wise, what is more feasible in or more possible in terms of expense? A Wagner opera or one of the Licht operas?
I think Licht is more expensive because you don't have a traditional orchestra, which normally doesn't cost so much. And in Wagner, okay, you have a few highly paid singers, but you don't have all these different ensembles. So, like in Amsterdam a few years ago, we performed 15 hours of Licht, but we had over 280 different performers. We had over 300 rehearsals.
Wow.
So that makes it very expensive. You can put on a Wagner opera in a few rehearsals. The soloists already know their parts. You have, if someone gets ill, you know, okay, there are 3 other singers who can perform it. So it's not so, it's already more repertoire and it's not so costly as the Stockhausen, also because of the sound technique, the equipment. Every soloist is amplified. So you need a lot of transmitters, you need a lot of microphones. So it's more costly, I think, also because of rehearsals, more rehearsals. Yeah.
Well,
so we need a very rich person.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, many thanks for your time, Miss Pasveer.
Thank you.
And well, we can only hope that Licht gets more performances the world
Yes, I
over.
hope so.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And let's hope one day it can come to Latin America, right? Because
Yes. Yes. Why not? Why not?
why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Good.
so much.
Many thanks, Ms. Pasveer, and to our Opera Notes audience. See you in the next video.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.